Okay, so maybe that's the start of the evening, since the recording is in progress. Hello and welcome to our online artist talk between Liraz and Persefoni Myrtsou. It's an artist talk happening today in the framework of Liraz's first solo exhibition in Berlin called Dirty Laundry at Alpha Nova and Galerie Futura. And it's an artist talk happening between Istanbul and Berlin right now. And my name is Sylvia Sadzinski, and together with my colleague Katharina Koch, I'm the artistic co-director of Alpha Nova and Galerie Futura in Berlin. And it's an art space, also Alpha Nova and Galerie Futura is a Berlin-based art space for exhibitions and cultural events with decidedly emancipatory and feminist perspective, and it was founded in 1986 already. We mainly focus on collaborations with women artists, creating a space for linking political intervention and artistic practice in order to develop critical standpoints for the artistic and academic communities, as well as society at large. And every year we realize up to 5 exhibitions with visual arts of all genres in cooperations with the participating artists and other partners. And yeah, one of the artists of this year's program, you can already see here, is Liraz. And my colleague Katharina Koch will now tell you a bit more about Adi's solo exhibition before we go into the artist talk that you can see it's been recorded. And so you're welcome, or you don't need to, but you are allowed obviously to switch on your videos as well so that we can see you. But it would be great maybe to mute your audio at least while we're having the talk, and maybe for the discussion later, you're also welcome to join. Katharina.
Yeah, hello also from my side. Yeah, I'm Katharina Koch, and as you may see, I'm sitting at Alpha Nova and Galerie Futura with the exhibition Dirty Laundry in my back. And also in the space is Liraz, so you can see her maybe here when I go, when I move a bit. So yeah, so I will say a few words about the exhibition before we start with the talk. So as Sylvia already said, it's we present Adi's first solo exhibition in Berlin here at Alpha Nova and Galerie Futura, and we are really happy to do this. And in her multimedia works, which primarily take the form of textiles, as you may also see in my back here, Adi researches the presence and function of memory and proposes ways to make marginalized voices heard and experienced. The starting point of Adi's project was the research on the history of her family, who is part of the Greek-speaking Jewish community of Romagnots, who are primarily based in Ioannina in Greece. And starting with the life of her grandmother, Adi negotiates historical representations and narrations of womanhood, as well as the roles of women within this community. She addresses questions of collective memory, as well as experiences of migration and exile. In doing so, she uses textiles that she embroidered and produced herself, along with found materials such as photographs and organic fluids, with elements of Romagnol textile traditions. In that way, the works become textile archives, whose materialities refer to definitions of belonging and migration. In general, one could say that the exhibition raises challenging questions about conceptions of home or homeland, cultural, religious, and patriarchal structures, as well as the notion of a unified Judaism. But I'm sure that in the following talk, we will certainly hear more about Adi's motivations, concerns, aims in general, and as well as about the individual work in specific. And now, before we really pass the word to Adi and Persefoni, we will just introduce both of them quickly with their short biography. And I start with Adi. So Liraz is an interdisciplinary artist who is currently working between Berlin and Ioannina. Adi holds a Master in Arts from the Academy Berlin Weißensee and Bachelor in Fine Arts from the Bezalel Academy of Art and Design in Jerusalem. She has exhibited and performed in various places around Germany, Greece, and Israel, Palestine, and also works as an educator focusing on both contemporary and historical political realities in collaboration with different institutions in Germany and in Greece. Yeah, and now I'll pass on the word first to Sylvia again, and yeah, she will introduce Persefoni.
Yes, exactly. I'm really happy to welcome and introduce Persefoni Myrtsou. She's a visual and performance artist and anthropologist, and she has a BA in Fine Arts from the Glasgow School of Art and holds an MA from the Institute of Art and Context from the UdK Berlin. Currently, she is a doctoral student at the Humboldt University Berlin at the Institute for European Ethnology, where she is researching artist migration through the perspectives and everyday practices of artists who live in and between Istanbul, Athens, and Berlin. In her work, Persefoni focuses on the practice of denationalism through the use of subversion, cultural appropriation, and humor, but also through memory, work, and community building. And she also often performs as her Turkish alter ego, I guess it's Ayşenur. Yes, in the last couple of years, she's also engaged with peace and care activism in the Greece-Turkey context. And I'm really happy that we have you here directly from Istanbul. And so I will just pass the digital mic over to both of you, Adi and Persefoni.
Thank you so much for the introduction.
Thank you. Yes, yeah. Thank you very much for the very accurate and kind introduction. And yeah, I'm very excited to have this artist talk today. And I want first to tell a bit about how did Persefoni and I meet. Because I think it connects a lot to what we're going to talk about today. So as part of Persefoni's PhD work, she is interviewing different artists who left the place where they were born and migrated to Berlin or to Greece or to Turkey. And so she asked me, we met through a common friend, and Persefoni asked me if she can interview me. And this interview, I think it lasted around 10 hours or maybe even more. And then we realized that we actually have much more to talk about. And since then we are, we're meeting online usually. To talk about different topics. I think we actually met in reality only twice, but we actually, I think, became also close friends, which is a very interesting process that can happen, especially during times of lockdowns and quarantines. And what Persefoni and I have in common, it's many things. This is also what gives us the possibility to talk for many hours. But one of the things that we are both lately very much occupied with is how did we inherit and learn a certain knowledge which is connected to which has the center of the marriage of our maternal ancestors, and which means the wedding and everything that surrounds it, that also includes trauma and also includes, of course, different notions of patriarchy, but also includes the objects that we can learn from, which are the dowry. And I want, before we go into my work, I want to show you something, a project that Persefoni very recently have created. Before I will show you that, I want first to give the credit to all the people that are involved, because this project was part of more of a larger project, which is called Misplaced Women by the artist Tanya Ostojic. I hope I pronounced her name correct. So she gave this workshop in Istanbul, which was organized by Performance Istanbul and funded by Kültür Akademi Trayabia, Istanbul. And what Persefoni did in this performance, which and now I will also share my screen so you can see it, she did something very brave that when I saw it, I was really, I felt pain. She gave her grandmother's dowry to all the participants of the performance and basically gave them the permission to do whatever they want to do with it, which I think it's a very brave action. And I feel in a way also jealous in Persefoni that she dared to do that. And by doing that, she basically connected her history, the knowledge that she has received from her grandmother. She shared it and connected it with all of what the other participants have brought with them. And as the cover photo of this event, in which you see me standing in a very big dress, which is basically also made in a way from the dowry and the wedding story of my grandmother, I thought that it would be interesting also to see those images of Persefoni wearing her grandmother's dowry. So I just want to share some photos with you and giving the credit to the photographers, which are Persefoni herself. Now, again, I hope I'm pronouncing all the names correctly. Kayhan Kaigusus and Azu Yayintas. Persefoni, okay, good, I said it correctly. So yeah, I'm just scrolling through those images here. Also, it's really nice. You can see very clearly that the connection between Persefoni and my works. And this last image I love because Persefoni really looks like she's about to get married, being brought by her community to this ceremony. Yeah, and with that, I am going to give the word to Persefoni.
Thank you so much, Adi, for this beautiful presentation of my work. I'm really really, it means so much to me that you feel my work so deeply and you relate to it in such a, and you gave interpretations to it that I haven't thought about in a way, you know. Also, thank you, Sylvia and Katharina, for the amazing, introduction. I'm very happy to be doing this. Thanks for inviting me, for involving me into this journey of Adi's first solo exhibition, specifically in that space of Alpha Nova Galerie Futura. That has a specific ideological position that I identify myself very much with. Both as a woman, as a feminist, and as an academic, or wannabe academic, let's say it like that. So I will just start saying a few things about, Adi's journey in how this work came to be, what Adi went through, what I know from the interview, from our, endless hours of talking with each other. So the work that is exhibited into the gallery at the moment is a work that went through a year-long process of Adi's engagement with the Romaniot community of Yanina, and also her engagement with her female ancestors, specifically in this exhibition with her grandmother Mireta, which we'll say a lot about today. So I will say a few things about the Romaniot community, just in case people don't know much about who the Romaniots are. So they were a Jewish group that arrived in the region around 2000 years ago from Palestine during the Roman occupation, and hence the name Romaniots. So the Romaniots of Yanina did not mix too much with the latecomers, the Sephardic Jews that came after 1492 from Spain, mainly because of the geography of the region of Yanina, which is very mountainous. So they were also not subjected into different expulsions that Jews were subjected in the region because of that geography. So they maintained their tradition intact almost up to World War II. So the work in the gallery is is a result of these multiple field trips to Yanina, and also work that much of it has been done in situ in Yanina and was brought to Berlin. So for me, I see, so what things I'm going to say today, I'm just going to address to Adi, if that's okay with everybody. I feel this is like a public talk of the two of us. What I'm going to say is my feelings and my interpretation of her work. So I think that Adi, your work is a journey of both physical and psychic return, you know, a journey that involves an excavation of your personal, of a personal archaeology, and also a reworking of your past into the future. So I also see that as a person that comes from Greece, and as a person that feels very ashamed of having been taught since, you know, the beginning of my life, only the formal history of what the place that I come from is, you know, I feel ashamed that I didn't know the word Sephardi until I was quite old, you know. So I see this work of yours as an attempt to, you know, to rescue a very disrupted and silenced history of this community in Greece. And I really, I mean, in a way, I really want to thank you for doing this. I think this is like so important for me as a person that was born and raised in that geography, to have you doing this for this geography and for the people of this geography. So I'm actually very, very attached to your work, as you know, because I myself, I come from my paternal grandparents. They are refugees from the 1923 population exchange between Greece and Turkey. And they came in Thessaloniki in 1923. So they were contemporaries somehow with Myreta, a little bit older than Myreta. And I myself have been going through a journey of investigation of those erased links of my family with Turkey. And that includes also my migration project to Turkey, my more recent migration project. So now Adi and I, we're gonna take you around the exhibition a little bit. We're gonna talk about the works. So we'll see if this performative thing is gonna work out or not. So Adi, you grew up in a very secular Ashkenazi framework in Israel-Palestine, where, you know, Israel was this unquestionable home for you. And you also experienced the conflict very much in your life since you were a child. So because of you being raised in this framework, you started questioning this idea of this unquestionable home. And you also started creating, as you told me, in a very honest sense, a strong sense of unbelonging into Israel. So after, I will say a little vignette now from Adi, I will share some vignettes. So after being asked by a classmate of hers what her ethnicity is, you know, Adi got a shock, and she went to Shelly, hey Shelly, her mom, and asked, you know, what is our ethnicity? Aren't we Ashkenazi? What was I supposed to answer there? So Shelly told Adi, you know, you're not as Ashkenazi as you think you are. So Shelly told Adi Myreta's story, her own mother's story, Adi's grandmother's story, which is actually the basis of Dirty Laundry. So you embroidered Myreta's story onto the history dress that you see behind Adi and behind Katharina also, partly, and that is hanging as the central piece of the exhibition. So the fabric that this dress consists of is colored, crocheted, and embroidered by you, Adi. And this craft of coloring, embroidering, and crocheting is a craft that Myreta herself was practicing, a craft that it was discontinued, that you found out later about it, and you reclaimed, you learned about it, you self-taught, you became self-taught, you learned about this craft yourself. So on the dress, you have embroidered different fragments of Myreta's biography, such as a forbidden love she had with a Christian man, or her undesired return return or expulsion from her father to Israel, Palestine, or her, a place that she never felt at home. Her sorrow of being deprived of being a mother to her children who were taken away from her by her father. And this is how your mother ended up being raised in Greece. You also talk about your connection in this embroidered history, her story. You talk about your connection, your bodily connection, your corporeal connection to your grandmother, and the way that you feel connected to her through wearing that dress that has her story on it. Myretta herself was using these techniques, embroidery and crocheting, to narrate her story, but because she lived in this patriarchal framework, that she was constantly oppressed and she was not able to speak her story the way she wanted to speak it, she used symbols. And I think later you can say a lot of things about the Myretta symbols and the symbols that you have actually embroidered into the dirty laundry that is in the exhibition, and the meanings of those symbols. And I see this, this textile work that you've done with this dress as the way you verbalized her history, through giving it words, sentences, structure, paragraphs that she was not able to talk about, a presence to her and a voice. So the next work I wanted to talk about is a performance Adi did at the opening, which is called Mother Tongues. And again, I want to start with a little vignette, which is when I met Shelley online, Adi's mother. So, I started speaking to Shelley in English, and she came up to me and she said, "Ξέρεις, μιλάω λίγο ελληνικά," in an immaculate native Greek accent. So I speak a little bit of Greek, she said to me. So in you, Adi, and your family, I also see, I think your story captures a long and troubling struggle that Jews, Greek Jews, have been having with this idea of indigeneity in Greece, what in Greek is called ithagenia. Greek nationality has been conceived on the basis of language and religion. So a Greek is somebody who is Greek speaking and Christian Orthodox. So indigenous Jews and Muslims of the region, people that were actually in the region way before latecomers that were Christian Orthodox, like my family, still have trouble with this idea of indigeneity, and still the right to claim themselves as indigenous or as locals is questioned. And at the same time, this affects the way they are perceived as citizens in today's Greece. This has, you feel that, you experience that, because you are a person that, in my view, you should have been having a Greek passport, and you don't, so this is something, definitely we're gonna talk about later. So I want to say a little bit about your performance, which is, you wore the history dress, the smaller, let's call it like that, history dress that is hanging behind you, if you want to show it. And you put red lipstick on, and you stand on a talit, and you put around your hands and your head a self-made tefillin, which are the traditional props for Jewish prayer. And you engage yourself in a ritual of preparation for prayer. So instead of, reciting a traditional, well-known Jewish prayers, you basically start narrating in 3 languages the story of your female ancestors, and connect it to your own story and your daughter's story also. The way you narrate, or what the most interesting part is, the way you do this narration. Basically, before each sentence that you say, you drink a mixture of coffee and milk from a carton of milk that you have next to you. And while you speak, the fluids come out of your mouth and they spill onto your body, onto the dress, all the way down to the talit. I see this, this use of these sacred religious objects, you do this in a very interesting way, because I see it as an attempt that you do to separate what is forbidden and what is not, as understood in, patriarchal monolithic Judaism. So I see this performance, the way, the methods you engage in, as methods of rewriting the history of these women through those forbidden fluids, through coffee, through milk, through sweat, through menstrual blood. And you twist the idea of what is actually sacred. And I find this absolutely fascinating. And what I find very fascinating altogether is that in dirty laundry, dirt, the dirt as a material entity is reclaimed into, is used as an elixir of women's power. I find this absolutely fascinating. So, okay, guys, I'm wrapping up slowly. So I also want to say that the ritual is also very important in your work, the way you engage in rituals and you produce rituals. So maybe we can see your photographic work. So Adi has done a photographic work, which is basically a documentation of her daily coffee, the coffee that she drinks every day. It's Turkish coffee. So, we all have in that region, we all have the tradition of reading the cup, of, foreseeing the future through the cup. So Adi actually didn't know how to cook Turkish coffee, didn't know how to read the cup. And she, again, in this self-taught manner that she reclaimed her own history, her story and heritage, she learned how to cook Turkish coffee and read the cup. And I find it very interesting that, you actually brought in, this ancestral practice that you didn't know how your ancestors are doing, and reinvent it, just appropriate it, make it your own, and you use it as a way to foresee your own future, to understand your own future through the filter of what you have reclaimed, the reclaimed practice of your ancestors. So all this disruption, it's a disruption that you are trying to overcome by reclaiming all these practices. So I just want to conclude with a little thought before I start actually speaking, discussing properly with Adi. So I would like to say that for me, your work is a recovering and a renewal of diasporic roots through a return to this ancestral land, and through those different performances of heritage that you engage in, and through this reclaiming of forgotten practices such as textile work, embroidery, coffee reading. And I see them personally as strategies of moving forward and as ways of articulating what, James Clifford in his book Returns calls traditional futures. And we can talk about this concept of traditional futures because I think it's very interesting in the context of your work. So just to get the discussion going, I want to say a few things about the last work that we haven't talked at all about, which is the video work, which is probably one of the most fascinating works in that exhibition, which in my view, it captures very accurately the way you, Adi, went into this personal archaeological digging project in Yanina when you returned there. So the central object of that video is a pile of rusty old sewing machines that you found in the backyard of the Kahal Kadosh Yashan synagogue. Yes, good, okay, in Yanina. And you found them by the entrance to the women's chambers of the synagogue. They were abandoned, they were rusty. So in the video, you basically engage in this ritual of revival of the sewing machines, and you reinvent in a purely feminist way, in my view, a very traditional and patriarchal ritual of the female purification, the mikvah. In Jewish tradition, women after every menstrual cycle, they're supposed to go to the synagogue and purify themselves. So I think it's fast the way you purify you feministly, that was my word, you purify in a feminist way. The sewing machines, I find it captures so well so many aspects of your work, that relate to the ritual and the reclaiming of the past into a specific ideology of you as a contemporary feminist today. So I would like to ask you to tell us the story of those sewing machines. And so, I think people should hear the story of these objects that are so central for the dirty laundry. So please, let's start talking, finally.
Thank you, Persefoni, for explaining my work so well. I would like just to relate to two things that you said before I start talking about the machines. So first, it's very challenging to tell the story of a person who is not alive anymore, and especially in the case of my grandmother, who's not alive for over 40 years. She passed when I was 4 years old. So of course, many things are things that I guess, I don't really know. And also everything that I tell is based, or most of the things that I tell is based on a small bit of my own memories and a big bit of my mother's memories. So this is what makes it a memory work and not an actual work that for sure she would have told her story completely different than the way that I tell it, even if she would have had the possibility to talk. And then just something very small about my work, mother tongues, about the performance. Just to clarify one small point, that what I am doing is not separating between what the sacred and the dirty. The separating is something which is very basic in Jewish tradition, to separate all the time what is considered to be sacred and what is considers to be everyday or dirty. And in my work, I turn basically the dirty into the sacred. So I basically go against this separation, or create a new separation from what is from the patriarchal monolithic point of view and give the focus on those things that I'm reclaiming. About the sewing machines, so the story goes, the story can fill in basically all the artist talk, so I need not to be careful how much I tell and what exactly do I tell. But when I first arrived to the Kahal Kadosh Yashan synagogue in Yanina, I was advised by a person from the Jewish community of Yanina, a Romaniot person that migrated to Israel by the name Anna Galti. She advised me to go and check what is there to see in the back of the synagogue. And then I found this big pile of sewing machines that was basically under the women's gallery in front of the door that led the women of the community inside the synagogue. And when I started learning the story and researching the story, I found out that those machines, so perhaps also to say that there were, in the beginning of the 20th century, there were about 4,000 members of the community, of the Romaniot community in Yanina. By the fall of the Ottoman Empire, half of them migrated to New York, and around 2,000 stayed. And on the 25th of March, 1944, almost all of those 2,000 were deported to Auschwitz-Birkenau, and from them only, I think, around 65 people survived. And what happened was that when the German military occupied Greece and deported, and sorry, occupied Yanina, because occupying Greece was in different stages. When they occupied Yanina, they introduced different procedures how to, after they deported the Jewish community, they introduced different procedures what to do with the property that those people have left, forcingly left behind them. And those rules said, first, it's everything that was left belongs to the German military. The second stage would be only to certain very distinguished people, Greek people, which are perhaps very rich or, for example, powerful as the Christian Orthodox Church. And only the last stage would be everyone who wants can just enter the houses, take whatever they want, or just take the houses themselves. It's important to mention in this point that actually the large majority of this community was extremely poor, which is not the case with my family. My family was one of the two richest families from the Jewish community, but almost all those families were very, very poor. But since clothes were self-produced, it was a must in every household to have a sewing machine. Every household, no matter if it was Jewish, Muslim, or Christian, had at least one sewing machine. So yeah, so there was also this amount of sewing machines that was left, and in some cases was taken by simple Greek Orthodox citizens, but some amount was taken by the Archbishop of Yanina. And now I reached this, I go back now to 2018. Or further to 2018, I reached the back of the synagogue and I find this pile of the machines, and I start asking people, what actually happened? What are those machines and why are they here? And then I heard two versions. I will tell first the version that I don't think is the real story. And this version says, for those Jewish women that survived and returned to Yanina, the Joint, which is a Jewish foundation that donates money to different Jewish communities, they sent a certain amount of sewing machines to these women so that they can earn their living by using them. Now, the other story says, no, what happened was that the machines that the Archbishop had, he, after Germany lost the war and some of Jewish survivors returned to Yanina, after a few years, as a process of reparation, he decided to return a certain amount of sewing machines to the women that have returned, so that, yeah, they can perhaps earn money or just, have their machines back, or have something to use in order to sew clothes for themselves. Now, why do I believe this story and not the other one? Because when I was in Yanina 2019 and to do the field work, I was working with two students of the Art Academy of Yanina that was led. The students were part of a seminar that was led by Dr. Esther Solomon. And two of those students, they were working in restoration, and they have succeeded to reveal the serial numbers of the machines. And those serial numbers were, I found a list online that shows, according to each serial number, the year in which this machine was produced. And then I saw that all, without any exception, all of those machines were produced in the beginning of the 20th century, or sorry, I will correct myself. All those machines, without any exception, were produced before the German occupation of Yanina. And one machine was even produced in the end of the 19th century, which was the time of the Ottoman ruling in Yanina. So this was for me the answer. No, those machines were actually machines that were confiscated from Jewish women that actually belonged to Jewish women, to members of the community. And this is why, for me, these objects are not machines. They are like bodies. They are like organic matter that stayed in this place and carries a story, but also carries the traces of time because they're full of rust. The plants took over them. Yeah, and they're a sort of an evidence, or Zeitzeugnis, as we say in German. So yeah, so this is what I'm basically doing with those machines in this video project. I am letting them to tell their stories, and I'm also conducting a ceremony of purification. Just one more anecdote. There was one of the few survivors that returned to Yanina after she was freed out of Auschwitz-Birkenau. Estelle Cohen, or Stella Cohen, her name was. She just passed a few months ago. She lived eventually very long, and she told the story that I had the privilege to have access to. That when she returned to Yanina, she actually went to the Archbishop and she asked to have her machine back, which I suppose it was around 1945, before he decided to do reparations. So she went to the Archbishop and she asked, please, can I have my machine back? And he told her, okay, but tell me the serial number. And she was an 18, 19-year-old woman who was severely traumatized. So, and she told him, I can only tell you this number that I have written on my wrist. I don't know the number of the machine. He didn't give her the machine at that point, but perhaps this was something that made him rethink and change his mind and eventually give this certain amount of machines back to the community. Yeah.
Thanks, Adi. I also want to, ask about the one sewing machine that is exhibited in the space, which you took. I personally find this a very revolutionary act, because as a person from Greece, I know I have experienced the way that the Greek state treats this type of objects. The way they don't think of this history as part of the history of this place, and I think that actually, even the institution, the synagogue itself, didn't do much for the sewing machines. They also left them to rot in the back. So I find this, I find this act of yours to rescue one of the machines as, revolutionary in the sense that you took that object from there and you rewrote its history, the body, as you said, which is. It is so true, that you took it away from that place and, you rewrite its history through making it part of your work. So your work becomes a way of writing a certain history, not as your work, as you, the author of that work, but as you, the person who brings together these different collective authors from the past that, make up this history that doesn't exist, that is not documented anywhere. That you were actually the first person who talked about those machines, who brought them into light, who even speculated different stories of those machines. Yeah, that's just, I wanted to talk a little bit about writing feminist history, and I really think this is a great example of how feminist history can be written in an artistic way, through an artistic form.
I just want to comment with something shortly, because actually those machines, they were kept until a certain point inside the synagogue, because the community was severely reduced. I mean, the number of the members was very much reduced. So there were some spaces in which it was it was possible to use those spaces as storage rooms, and also there is they use of some spaces for the gniza object, for the objects that are supposed to be thrown away, but they're considered to be sacred, so they are kept in a certain area in the synagogue until they're going to be buried in the cemetery. So those machines are actually not gniza, but in a way they were kept. They weren't just discarded. So this is still important to say. The synagogue of Yanina doesn't have a lot of money. It took many years until it could be renovated. The roof was dripping, water was dripping inside when it was raining, and in Yanina there are sometimes very heavy storms. So I don't feel comfortable to just say they neglected them, but at the same time, when the synagogue was renovated, I think it was 1996, they received a certain donation of money from the community in New York. And they renovated the synagogue, and they also put this memorial with all the names of the murdered people during the Holocaust. And then they removed the machines outside. And I still find it interesting that the location where they brought them outside was to the women's gallery. It wasn't to the women's gallery, it was under the women's gallery. And now just think about it also that there used to be another synagogue in the yard for the minyan, for the small praying ceremony, which was also destroyed, but the stones are somehow piled there. Or on the other side, you have the rest of the stones from the Kahal Kadosh Yashan, from the second newer synagogue that was destroyed by German soldiers. So you have different piles in the yard of the synagogue, which I think at the same time there is a certain from the point of view of the community and the people who run the synagogue, there is a certain respect towards them. So it's also about lack of means. And now they did decide also to do something with those machines. They are going to be exhibited in a frame that I am in a way excluded from because I had a certain fight with this institute, but I can't talk about it further. But at least I can give them the credit that they are going now to do something with those machines. And maybe it was my contribution to save them, the project that I have done with them. Yeah.
And to even make them aware of the existence of those machines,
Yeah.
Come on, it is like that.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about one more thing, and then I think we should just open up the discussion with the rest of the people in the group. I wanted to talk a little bit about, this feminist return of yours in Yanina, which I understand as a way for you to rehome yourself, to establish or to make a home for yourself. So like finding Yanina for you, I have a sense is somehow a reconciliation and a reclaiming of your identity as a Jewish woman, which in your life, as you have described to me, you have been you have yourself denied, and you have been denied that identity to claim yourself as a Jewish woman, buried under nationalism and secular identity, and the secular identity of Israel. So I also see, this meticulousness of how you devote yourself into embroidery, the work, the labor that is put into those objects there, which I think it's, if you can show one, it would be really great so that people understand of, the amount of time that has been put into this, into this work. I see it, as on the one hand, as an exercise of endurance for you, but also as a way, I interpret it as a kind of a way of self-healing, becoming, healing from nationalism, patriarchy, all these things that have suppressed you, but your female ancestors too, I just wanted to say that to just ask you a little bit about, the way you have reclaimed your Jewishness, which I think it's very interesting because you have reclaimed your Jewishness in a way that has no connection to you know, the way Judaism is practiced in the, you know, in the normative monolithic way that usually Judaism is practiced. So you know, I wanted to maybe say a few things about that, like how is it to reclaim an identity in this sort, to make actually, and to make an identity for yourself. And I think it's probably a very lonely enterprise because, you know, the practices you engage in would be seen. Oops.
You were gone.
I was gone. Did you hear for what I said?
Was it me or was it Persefoni that was gone? Ah, it was me. I'm sorry. So only I couldn't hear you. The rest could hear you.
Okay, good. So anyway, just to wrap up, I just want to say, is it lonely to be this kind of Jew who may be seen as a blasphemous person by other Jews, you know? So I know you have experienced exclusion because of the way you have chosen to practice Judaism. So, you know, I think it's something maybe we can talk a little bit more about, because I think this kind of, you know, the way you practice, for us as feminists, I think the way you decided to practice Judaism, I think it has a lot of, you know, information for feminists. And, you know, we can not take example, but you know, just orient ourselves on the ways you have decided to practice your religion. And I see it, you know, I myself have been very much inspired by your work, and I found the power to do something with these objects from my grandmother's dowry very much because of you. I told you that because, you know, it was something that, you know, I just didn't know what to do about it. I didn't know if I can actually touch it, if I have the right to touch it, if I have the right to do anything with it, or should I just keep it there for the next generation? That's the role of that. And I think just this way of taking it out and doing something with it, just this act itself is something, you know, that changes the way that things have been done, you know. And I think it's, you know, in this framework of you becoming this kind of, you know, lonely feminist Jew, I think it's, you have a lot of things to say about that, I think. And I think it's worth listening to it a little bit.
Yeah, so since I missed a big part of what you actually said, I can try now to interpret what your question was. Yeah, so I think what I do, well, perhaps I should also say this, like this, having this Jewish identity that I meanwhile have is not something that I always had. I think this is also something that we spoke about often before, that I started defining myself as a Jewish person only a couple of years after I left Israel. Because I was part of the hegemonic structure of Jews. Everyone around me, or almost everyone, all the people, most of the people that I met in my everyday life, not all, but most, were Jewish. So I never even tried to define if I am this thing that was defined for me or not, which is also something that I think you will hear very often, or I hear very often from Christians that live in Germany, that when you ask them, are you Christian, they will say no, because they're not religious. So this was also my experience. And as after I left and I came here, and I started constantly being defined as a Jewish person from the outside, I started rethinking about my sense of belonging and my identities, my hybrid identities. And this is actually also what this work is about, because when all the stains that are on the dress were created in the process of a performance in which I am asking the audience to spill fluids on me, and those fluids are staining my body. And this is my experience, which I think I can't speak for every Jewish person. I know that this is an experience that many Israeli Jews have after they moved to Germany. But I think still most of the Israeli Jews that moved to Germany, they deny the Israeli identity, but they also deny the Jewish identity. And for me, I think in this search for some sense of belonging and history that I can grow from, this was I found my Jewish identity, and nowadays I do define myself as a Jewish person. I feel a bit of discomfort to define myself as a secular Jewish person, even though I think from the perspective of many religious Jewish people, I am secular. But I feel a bit of an unease because I am interested in finding back the tradition, but in my way, not in a way that I have to obey all the rules that were set beforehand, but in a way that allows me also to interpret those rules. And yes, this is a process of which is quite lonely and isolated because it doesn't fit to any existing form. Even though from a bit of connection that I have to people who live in the USA, I think over there are such communities, but I don't know of such communities in Germany. Maybe I'm wrong. I would love to find such communities in Germany because I really miss this kind of exchange. And of course, I would love to have one day such a community in Greece. But since the amount of Jewish people in Greece is very, very small, I am not sure if this is really going to.
Wouldn't you think, like, I mean, I can identify with what you say because through my return to Istanbul, I also, I was baptized Christian Orthodox. And again, when you ask me, are you Christian? I'm like, no, there's no way I would say yes. I don't believe, I was not a believer. My family is also quite secular. My father, not so much because his family was as Christian Ottomans. They actually identified themselves more as Christians rather than Greeks. So he has a sense of religiosity in him. And I found myself visiting churches, when I first came to Istanbul, like wanting to find myself in these spaces or mosques that used to be churches and just being there, or going into services that I didn't used to ever. In Greece, I never go to services. I don't feel like going there. I think it has something to do with this sense of being in a certain diaspora, or in the case of Greeks of Istanbul, in a certain minority. So this position of being there creates this sense of wanting to trace some sort of belonging that you feel it's not your thing. But at the same time, I haven't baptized my son. And also we haven't done sunnat. My partner is he doesn't like to be called a Muslim, but he comes from a Muslim background. So, but we decided not to do circumcision to our son. So we just abstained from any sort of religious practice onto our child's body. And I was thinking that when you said that you would really like to find a community of women or other Jews that embrace the type of Judaism that you want to advocate for. I can imagine that you and we could bring together some sort of rituals from we could have such an interreligious community. I'm not sure. If sometimes the alliances we're looking for, they don't have to be necessarily, classified in this sort of way. Like, especially when we think about intersectionality and stuff like that? Just an idea. You know.
Yes, I completely agree with you. Also, as a mother of 2 children who are actually also half Muslim, half Jewish, and live in a Christian country. Yes, I agree with you very much. And this is actually what I'm also interested in with my ongoing project, because all those, not all, but many of the symbols that I'm working with, or the techniques that I'm working with, were used also by the Muslim community and also by the Christian community. So there are actually many links also in the traditions. The traditions have also influenced each other. The Jewish Roman traditions, you can see in them a big influence from the Orthodox Church, as big influence from the Muslim practice in this region. So yes, I completely agree with you, and I think even the community that I actually have today, which is made out of my friends and my close family, my partner, people are from different religious backgrounds, and actually only a few of them are Jewish, and still I feel very much connected when we talk about the things that we have inherited. Then they're like with you, I see many links that sometimes are even more than when I talk with Ashkenazi Jewish friends of mine. Yes, so I completely agree with what you say. Thank you for saying that.
I want to do a mikvah. So let's guys, please go for it. Ask. You know, it's the thing. The panel is yours now. You have a chance to ask Adi or me whatever you want, or just comment something, your thoughts, your feelings.
Hello, can I say something?
Put your camera on, dude.
Please.
Okay, just a moment. Okay, I did it. First of all, maybe Persefoni, you must help me because you know my English.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
It's Yaniotica English, not even.
I've done this before.
So if you see something, please tell it. So thank you very much. Okay, I have seen you also, and I was also in the gallery, and I have seen the exhibition, but it's different and another experience to see it even from a screen from the computer. I would like to comment and say something and ask something. First of all, I would like to say that I'm from Giannina, and I had the feeling before I meet ID that I know everything about Giannina. Let's say everything. I like reading books. I like history very much. I like documentaire. I don't know. I like everything. And when I met Adi, I realized that I knew maybe a lot of things about the half of the population of Giannina. In history books, and then I realized that is history, there are no mentioning women at all. Till 1940 or something like this, there is no mention in Giannina about or from Jewish community or from Christian community or from Muslim community. There is no, we don't know no woman that what they were doing, how was living, what they were doing, anything. And it was amazed because I thought that I know many things, I know everything. And I met Adi and I realized that these things that I knew, they are not including the half of the population of this time, if the women were the half of the population. And in the way that she tried to give this at the beginning, I was when she had an exhibition here, or she was trying to talk about these women. not only for the Jewish community, but and for other communities. I had the feeling I was telling her, maybe she remember, oh, right, and a text about this, explaining dates, war, passades, generals, what it was going here. But now I'm realizing more and more that there is no need, there is a need to know the history, but there are all and other ways to get closer to the truth, to what happened. And about what happened, the question is for you, Persefoni. You said as you use the term traditional future, that in her way, taking some traditional customs, if I say it well, like traditional, no one now is embroidering in the house or something like this. And somehow she's trying to talk about the future because she's also anti-fascist, against patriarchy, and about our society for now, not about what happened, and about now and what will happen. I would somehow like to tell me a little bit more about the traditional future, if it is in this context that I realize it. And for Adi, I would like to ask her, I have told her and personal, that, Adi knows Gianena, it's a small city in the mountains. Till 1990, it was a dead end. You could go only to Albania and the borders were closed. There were no tourists, there were no people. It was a small conservative town, and it's still very conservative, and in a very conservative country, because Greece is very conservative till now. And if she thinks that many friends of mine, they are saying, okay, Panos, artist, art, okay, it's art, but okay, to see someone, period, in blood, in underwear or something like this, it is too much for us. That if an artist, when want to talk about a community, in a community, must have in her mind, now as Adi, about the space, the environment that she produced art, that she will talk to them or no, going like what she has in her mind. I don't know if I made the question right.
Adi, I think it's interesting that you address this issue of, representing a community, and then I can talk about traditional futures.
Yeah, so I have to admit that I often have a lot of anger in me towards what has happened and the way that things have happened, and this anger can be seen in things that I am creating. Yeah, I think my work, I will just say it. I think that my work is very expressive to my emotions, and some of those emotions are anger, and this anger is coming from an experience of silencing. And when I feel that I'm being silenced, or when I feel that my ancestors before me were silenced, then I want to scream. And this scream is sometimes something which is not pleasant to see for everyone. But I think at the same time, it is also empowering for those who have had the experience of silencing. Now, speaking specifically about this underwear with the period blood, it has created a big mess, let's say. A big fight that also became a legal fight with a certain institute. And in this case, I have to say that I was not only surprised that this is the way that they reacted, I was also shocked, because for me, this is something which is, it's in a way very old-fashioned to show underwear and to show stains of period blood. I mean, this is practices that were very revolutionary in the 1970s, and we are now in 2021. I mean, it is over 30 years that those practices are very, very common in the art world. So yeah, I'm also very naive, and sometimes I say things that I think that are very much acceptable, and then I realize, no, they're not, which is, I think, something that have happened here. And it is probably also because I don't actually live in Greece. I go there very, very often since around 3 years or almost 4 years. I'm spending time in Greece very often. Greece, especially Yanina, became my second home, but I don't live there in my everyday life. And I still, even though I'm used to hear Greek since I was born, because Greek is basically my mother's mother tongue, I still can't speak I don't completely understand the language. So when lacking these two things, of course, some things I'm still not familiar with. So speaking for this community in a language that this community accepts, then I would like to speak in a language that the community accepts, but I refuse to speak in a patriarchal language. I refuse, no matter what the consequences are, I refuse. And this decision specifically about the underwear, the stainy underwear, is coming from a patriarchal point of view, which I absolutely reject. And it is my experience from women, not all, because also the person who was speaking for patriarchy is a woman, but I have a different experience from other women from this community that I will give myself a compliment, but it's really an experience that I have that are thanking me for speaking up. And I even had one of them who is a woman that I adore. I will not mention her name now because I don't know if she's ready for that, but she even compared me to Yosef Elia, who was also excluded from the Roman youth community in Yanina because he also dared to resist some constructions. So this is how I will continue. I see Yosef Elia as my role model, as one Roman youth from this community. My other role model from the community is Ray Dalvin. Panos now disappeared, so we will not hear my answer. But I'm finished now with my answer anyway.
Where did he go? I think his internet.
Yeah, I probably will return in a bit. But I'm finished with my answer, Persefoni, if you want to also answer.
I think it makes sense to have Panos back to answer him.
Yeah.
No? I don't know what happened to it. Anyway, I just also wanted to say that, you know, when it comes to the Jewish community of Greece, and this is something I also noticed with the Rum, he's back, with the Rum Greek Orthodox community of Istanbul, they live in a mode of survival. Because the numbers are very few, they kind of like don't belong to the dominant national narrative of the states, both Greece and Turkey. So they kind of, I think, I have a sense from here, from Istanbul, that they want, okay, they are by default very conservative. The Greeks of Istanbul are an extremely conservative, patriarchal, all these things community, you know, that play by the game of the Turkish government also always, so that they are not, their position is not jeopardized, so that, you know. And I have, on the one hand, I have some, it also angers me to see the way they, you know, produce their existence, because they are, you know, they represent something. And on the other hand, I have an understanding of that position. of having to live in a place that, you know, you're considered a minority, you're considered not part of, you know, the Leitkultur, this German word, because that still plays very much in societies like Greece and Turkey. There is very clear Leitkultur, and in Germany this has been deconstructed already, but in Greece and Turkey you really see that. So yeah, that's just something I wanted to say about, you know, the minorities, the status of being in a minority, and our positions as coming into this minority, or like as coming as, not as members of these minorities, because I don't think we are members or they want us as members, but as an alternative voice to what they represent. So I think that's also a position that is a little bit dangerous for us. That's why we both experience, you know, exclusion in a way from this, you know, from these communities. Anyway, going back to what Panos asked about the traditional future, actually, this is something I read in James Clifford's book called Returns. It's the last book he wrote of a trilogy. And basically in the book, he analyzes the concept of indigeneity in the 21st century, who is indigenous, who can call themselves indigenous. And part of the book is about younger generations of, okay, he talks specifically about indigenous people in the US and in Canada, but part of the book is about reclaiming of practices of the past, younger generation of, you know, indigenous people reclaiming practices of the past and reappropriating them and reproducing them into contemporary practices into their lives. So in a very simple way, that's, you know, what he describes in the book. And I really see that somehow this is what Adi is also doing, you know, just to bring from the past something and, you know, place it into a contemporary reality and, you know, project, you know, applying onto this old traditional practice her own ideological stance, her own way of wanting to do things, as she said. So this is a little bit what traditional futures is about, because, you know, Adi's making represents something, you know, represents a practice that goes towards the future. You know, it suggests that she can pass on that knowledge to her daughter, continue that knowledge. So we can talk about that a little bit more if you want, and I can send you the book also if you want, the PDF of the book. It's in English. I don't think it exists in Greek, but I think you might enjoy that book. Is there anybody else who would like to ask something?
Maybe just to give the option, if someone doesn't want to turn on the microphone, to also write questions in the chat. Please, we will read them.
Yeah, that's possible too. No. Okay. Yanni, δεν σε ακούμε. We don't hear you.
Just to break the silence.
Break it. Perfect.
Well, I wanted to thank you, all of you. First, Sylvia and Katharina, that you give such a space to speak, and we can see also very interesting works. To Persefoni also, about the whole introduction and the way she explained the whole work of Adi. Adi, sorry I didn't manage to come to see your work.
You still have time.
Yeah, I think I will manage it. I'm sick at this week, so I hope I get over it and I will visit it. Just I wanted to thank you. It was great. I follow the whole discussion very concentrated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yanis.
I also want to say that Adi, Yanis, and Diana, who is also in the audience, are all three artists who I had the pleasure and the honor to interview for my PhD. And I'm so happy you guys were here. And Umut was actually here before, but he left. I don't know why. So they're all people that have, I mean, they have really defined my work, not only my academic work in my PhD, but also my work as an artist, my understanding of myself as a woman in Istanbul, you know, as a person from Greece, you know. So thanks guys for being here. I personally really appreciate it that you are here and you want to follow the work and this kind of, because with Adi, we've been, I mean, through Adi, actually, I've been thinking a lot about this idea of collective authorship and how, in my work, at least through my PhD, I really want to write the stories of artists because I see artist migration as a phenomenon from the perspective of the artists. How I want to write, I want to write it with them in a way. And I mean, Adi especially, okay, with Yanis, we're, I don't know, 1,000 years friends, but with Adi we really have been working on that, you know, just this constant exchange, I think. And in my view, I think this is how me as a feminist in academia, this is really how I would like to produce knowledge through my writings, or I would like knowledge to be produced through my writings. So yeah, anyway, that's just something I wanted to say to the people that are in the audience. So anybody wants to say something, last thing, like last feelings, thoughts, thank yous? I don't know. That's your chance. We are actually on time pretty much. We have another 5 minutes. So Diana, you want to say something? We hear you.
Yeah, I think I arrived a little late, but I just wanted to say these conversations that Adil and you are part of here that reach across borders and get us to think more imaginatively about our shared experience. And you know, something that I'm thinking about while you're talking about working with our grandmothers being so connected to experiences with fabric and materials and sewing. And, you know, I had a grandmother in South Africa who did fine silk embroidery, you know, as a way of which became her artwork, her way of expressing herself. And at the same time, through my grandmother and her history, I have to deal with, you know, that she was supporting apartheid. She was supporting a very specific experience in South Africa. So it's interesting the way we have to. I mean, all of us in our different cultures are negotiating our stories, and the idea, what you said about a future, a traditional future, or future and tradition is very, very interesting, because I think as artists, we have a capacity to be able to draw threads together, if I can use that metaphor as well, and create new ways for our daughters and for our sons. Through looking at our own personal experiences and traditions in this kind of way. So yeah, thank you for the conversation.
Thank you, Diana. Diana, I have to say, she's a South African painter based in Istanbul. I said already that we had an interview together. Adi, do you want to say something? Because I have something to say shortly.
Yeah, I want to say something also shortly to Diana, that yeah, you brought in something, a very interesting aspect that I'm also thinking often about in my work, because my grandmother also had a certain role in a colonial structure, which is also something that I'm reflecting on with my work, by also this action of reclaiming my belonging and disconnecting it to the belonging that she was part of and that I was born into. So thank you very much for bringing this also, because it's this conflicting histories that I don't always want to represent everything that my grandmother believed in. So there is, this is actually something that I said in the beginning, that probably my grandmother would have thought some things of the way that I represent her a bit differently than the way that I tell it, but at the same time, I think with the perspective of 2 generations after her, I can also see how this colonial structure also, she eventually was also hurt by it. And this is something, it's a bit of a difficult discourse, because of course there are different positions in hegemony, in power structures. But I think it's very important to talk about it, especially I'm not so well familiar with the South African discourse, but with the Israeli discourse, I think that that for many Jewish people who went to Palestine and were part of the creation of the State of Israel, or came later on in the 50s, many aspects of their past were erased from this attempt of crystallization of a society. Of course, many people really didn't have a choice. They had nowhere to go back to after the Holocaust. So it's not like I'm blaming those people for going there. Absolutely not. But I still see the responsibility of how things have developed, and I find it tragic that so many things were simply erased. Not only for the Ashkenazi or Sephardi or Romaniote Jews that came from Europe, but also those who came from other places around the globe. Their histories were also erased. And this is, I think, something that especially us in the 3rd generation, this is a responsibility that we have to find those erased histories and to present them. This is what I want to say. So thank you, Diana, for bringing it in, because it was also important to say.
I also think I totally share that feeling that, it's very important to talk about this kind of like dark aspects of our personal histories, because there are many, and specifically in my family, I know there is one incident, the one very buried pogrom that happened in Thessaloniki, in the pogrom of Campbell in do you remember? Panos, pogrom of Campbell in 1931.
1931.
Yeah, 31. Where there was basically the Jewish population of the neighborhood of Campbell was, they experienced a pogrom by the refugee population of the city, partly the Pontiac refugee population, but partly the Asia Minor refugee population. So, and, we have a tendency in Greece to idealize this refugee experience, to present it in a very victimizing way, actually these people became, perpetrators in the name of, the Greek nation state and the Greek integrity against their co-residents of the city in Thessaloniki. And it's not a singular event. Many different events, many different, atrocities happen against the Jewish population from the Greeks. And this is something we really haven't, we still are very, very far from even dealing with in the Greek public discourse. So this is something I really want to say, and I really want to, I think, as a person from that place, I think I take it as a responsibility to talk about this, and to, even who knows, my grandparents were there when that happened. Do I know what they did? I don't know. This information I don't have, but, we just have to know that, yeah, it's just something I want to say about what Diana said, which is very important. Thanks for bringing that in, Diana.
May I also add something about the new synagogue in out of the city, out of the castle of the city? It wasn't destroyed by the Germans. It was destroyed by the Greeks, by the Christian Orthodox in Yanina, that after the Germans left for taking material for building their houses. That's only for...
Yeah, like all over Greece, there was, Jewish property was looted by Greeks after the, like different levels of looting. The Germans, richer Greeks, poorer Greeks, different ways of looting into the houses.
No, in synagogue, it was not a looting. They took all the house.
Yeah, no, I'm talking generally
about the stones, everything. They didn't let anything.
But it was used as a stable by the German military, right? Yeah, so it was already in a very bad condition, and then the Christian Orthodox just took the stones, yeah. And
also, of course, in Thessaloniki, the oldest and Jewish cemetery, so that it is the
Aristotle University, basically,
of Thessaloniki, and many houses in Thessaloniki, they have stones from the tombs,
Yeah, and actually the whole Gulf of Thermaikos Gulf, the sea of Thessaloniki, if you dig it, if you get into the water, there's still a lot of tomb stones into the sea that have been just thrown into the sea. So these are really things that because people, that story is still not talked as part of the public discourse. It's just something that it is not dealt with. It's a no touch thing, and only the Jewish communities do whatever they can do at the in this modus of survival that I was talking about, because they also have to survive and please also partly the state. So it's a difficult situation. So should we wrap up, because our time is up? Thank you very much, everybody, for being here, for listening to us, for staying until this time. I don't know if Katharina and Sylvia want to say something before we close.
Thank you also from me for everyone who took part and arrived and also asked questions. It was really, an honor to have you here.
Maybe a bit late, but I still would have one question maybe to your artistic approach working with textiles, because I would be interested in hear a bit more about, is it a general approach and medium you would work with also in the context of other projects for the future, for example, which you are working with, or is it something which you think it was really specific also for this project on your own family history?
So answering this question properly would take a long time. So I will try to shorten it. So first about this project is still ongoing. It's not finished. Some parts of it, like this dress, for example, or some things that are hanged over there are finished, but this topic is still something that I'm continuing working with in different ways. Also with Panos here, we are about to publish a new series of books that is, now it's not textile, even though, it's a new series of books about the Romanet community, in which they also, in some plays of Ray Delvan that we're about to publish, she actually tells about this practice of textile within among the women of the community. So this is first about this project. This project is still not finished. And now about using textile in my work, I actually have done recently, I had two two commissioned performances that I've done recently, one in Offenbach am Main and one in Rostock, or Schwinmunde, Rostock. And in these two performances, I pronounced the name wrong. Anyway, Rostock and Offenbach am Main. In these performances, I also use textile. I think textile is for me a tool that I am using in order to express certain narratives that are usually connected, often connected, mostly connected to silent voices of women, to silent voices of women that also experience racism. So I think this is like a line that you can draw between basically everything that I do. It usually has textiles and it usually represents voices of such women. Yeah, so it's a language. For me, this textile work, it's a language that I am using. Yeah.
Okay, so should we wrap up, say goodbye? Thanks everyone again for being here.
Thanks everyone also from our side.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want also to say thank you to Katharina and Sylvia for facilitating this space, for giving me the room to tell those stories that have such a heavy weight in me. So it's a very great opportunity for me to have the space to tell them, and I'm really grateful and thanking you for this.
And we are really happy to have you here with your exhibition and showing these very important works and really interesting approaches how to work with or how to develop a feminist narration, I would say.
Yeah, and also like from my side, thanks both of you for sharing like your knowledge and like connecting this kind of like blind spots, at least I think like for a wider audience of like, I don't know how to call, like maybe Western European or however you want to call that then. Yeah, so thanks so much. Good that we recorded this conversation as well. I think it's worth to keep it in the digital archive as well.
Yes, we will do that. And yeah, and now, I mean, for those who haven't been here to the exhibition, have still the time to come. So we have 3 more days open.
3 more days.
3 more days it's open. And Adi, maybe you would like to say one word or one sentence to the last day and the performance you are going to make.
So first, I will be here on Saturday for the last day of the exhibition. If anyone feels like coming to the gallery to meet, to have a drink together and to have a last opportunity to see the exhibition with my guidance. And something else that happened in the frame of the exhibition is a workshop that I gave, was it last weekend? No, the weekend before last weekend. Which was called Textile Work as a Form of Self-Empowerment. I was working with 5 more people that have participated, and we have decided on the last day, on Sunday, that we would like to present what we have created, but not on the same day, but 2 weeks after, which will be also on Sunday. And what we will do, we will make a sort of a performative presentation of what we have created that will also express the way that we are connecting and interacting with each other. And this will be at 2 o'clock outside. We will start here at the bottom of the gallery, and downstairs at the entrance, and we will make this performative presentation intervention outside of the gallery. But yeah, it will be a meeting point at 2 o'clock, and then you can continue with us. And yeah, and then from 4 o'clock until 7 o'clock, I will be here for the finissage, and it will be wonderful to see whoever can join. And Persefoni, thank you so much for talking with me and presenting.
Thank you. Are you joking? I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. I'm really happy to be part of that, to be part of your journey and of in this specific space of that gallery. Yeah.
Okay, so
thank you so much. Everybody's so thankful.
Okay, and then we just close
That's
this
it.
meeting.
Enjoy your nights.
You too.
Good
wherever
night.
you are. And thank you all.
Goodbye.
Ciao.
Staying, you know, because we're moderators and stuff, so we should stay until the end.
All right.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you so